Um, okay, it's 3:30, so I'm gonna get started. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So I'll start by introducing everybody that's going to be speaking. So I'm Jenn, and I am sorry, I'm just making sure that that nobody unmutes right now. That would be great. Thank you. So I'm Jenn. I'm with Trexo Robotics, and also have with me from the Trexo team, Romeesa.
Hi, I'm Romeesa from Trexo.
And Allicyn will be joining us shortly. Allicyn is on the Trexo team as well. Her son uses the Trexo as well. She had an appointment with him this morning and they're just running a bit late, but she will be joining us soon and she'll have a lot of information to share. And then we're really lucky to have Tiffany here. Tiffany, oh, there's Allicyn, great. Tiffany is from the Kourageous Karter Foundation. And she'll tell you a little bit about the foundation and the wonderful stuff that they do. And you'll have a chance to ask her some questions as well. Allicyn, hi.
Hey.
Thanks for joining. Okay, so I'm going to get started. I can. Sorry, guys. I am having like a screen issue. I don't know what's going on. Okay. There we go. So we're just to give you a quick idea of what we're going to run through. We're going to do a little intro and then talk about what is the Trexo, go through some frequently asked questions. Allicyn has got a lot of personal experience and professional experience, and she's going to walk us through some of the areas that people are most interested in. And then we're going to do a little poll. And then Tiffany from the Kourageous Karter Foundation will talk, and then we'll end with any questions that you guys have. In the meantime, if you think of questions and you want to put them in the chat, that's great. We won't address them until the end, but you can put them there, or you can ask your question live at the end. So I think I've covered all the kind of key stuff, and I'm just going to let Allicyn get started with what is the Trexo.
Yeah, hey everyone, I'm Allicyn. I run sales for Trexo, and my son Kavai also uses the Trexo. That's him in the top left-hand corner there. We've been using the Trexo for about 2.5 years, so always happy to speak about it from personal experience as well. But what is the Trexo? It's basically a robotic gait trainer for kiddos with mobility challenges. So oftentimes families are asking if their kid can use it because of X, Y, and Z. So you can have kids who don't roll, sit, stand, walk, any of that on their own yet, but they can still benefit from the Trexo. Head control cannot be there. They need trunk support. Those are all reasons that do not disqualify your child from using the Trexo. So those are reasons they should use the Trexo, actually. But on the other hand, you have children who do use a gait trainer. They can initiate steps. They maybe walk 100 yards, but they have an irregular gait pattern. They drag their toe, they bunny hop, whatever it is, they need help learning that proper gait pattern and building strength and endurance. So that's where the Trexo would benefit them as well. So high level, that is the Trexo robotic gait trainer to help your child walk.
Thanks. And then let's jump right into the first question, the question that everybody always wants to know. How much is the Trexo? And if you could talk about both leasing and purchase in full.
Yeah, absolutely. So for a home device, it really is dependent on the size of your child. Small and medium are the same price, and large and extra large are the same price. So outright purchase for small medium is $34,900. Outright purchase for large and extra large is $39,900. Even if you had the funds to purchase it, I always suggest you look at that lease option for many reasons. The lease, it's a lease to own. You are committing to 12 months at a time. So for the small and medium, the monthly payment would be $999 a month. For the large and extra large, the monthly payment is $1,099 a month. So again, you sign in 12-month increments. At the end of 12 months, you're basically deciding if you're keeping or returning the Trexo. If you return it, there's no cancellation fees. If you keep it, you could purchase it at that point, minus what you paid, Or you can do another 12-month agreement, which same thing at month 24, reevaluate. Are you using it? Is it sitting in the corner? Are you happy with it? You can cancel, no cancellation fee, or continue with that lease. And at the end of 36 months, you would own it. It just really gives you checkpoints as a parent to make sure that everything is good and it's not sitting in the corner collecting dust. And the last thing I'll mention is both these options do come with the in-home 2-week trial. So it does require you to pay a little bit of money up front for your Trexo to ship out, and you are on a wait list to get there. But you do have 2 weeks in-home. Once you complete training with our guidance with Mark, then that starts your 2-week trial. If you're not happy with it, let us know. We'll schedule a pickup. And in that 2-week window, we'll schedule that pickup and refund that money back to you when we get it.
Great, thanks. Okay, so another question that we get often is, what are the options for somebody who can't afford a Trexo?
Yeah, so I mean, there's lots of options out there. Unfortunately, it just requires us as parents to do the legwork. So grants, fundraising, those are two of the things that I will initially suggest. We do have a list of grant resources that we could probably post in the chat box for you guys to look at. It is on our website as well. I put together that list just based on organizations that I knew were out there. Take a look at the criteria, because they do have different guidelines if your kid would qualify for them or not. Even looking in your community. So if it's not on the list, think about what's in your community. You have like Rotary Club, Lions Club, Kiwanis. These are all humanitarian organizations that want to get involved, typically in a local cause, and maybe support your efforts. So fundraising could be another option through them. And Make-A-Wish would actually be the other idea that I have kind of that falls into this category. We have recently rolled out a national partnership with Make-A-Wish, and this is a wish to walk experience. So if your child would qualify for Make-A-Wish, just know that that's an option. I will tell you they won't pay for it in full, but it's an experience, and there's a certain time frame that they will cover. And I'm happy to chat about that if that ever is of interest to anyone. And then fundraising. Everybody knows GoFundMe. Not that GoFundMe is bad. I typically suggest looking at an organization called Help Hope Live. They are a nonprofit, and they help families fundraise for medical expenses. So the Trexo does fall under that umbrella. The benefit to using them is you kind of have like a personal fundraising coach who will guide you with some ideas and ways to fundraise, but also you can use their online platform. And since they're a nonprofit, this means it's tax deductible for the donors. So oftentimes people want to donate, but they're looking for that write-off. So this is more of an incentive for them to do it because they can get the write-off while still supporting you. And that opens it for businesses as well. And the other benefit to using them with their GoFundMe type platform is because they're a nonprofit, it's all filtered through them and it's not going to affect your benefits. So each state is different. And as a parent, we have to be mindful of what the state guidelines are. You have to report that income from the GoFundMes, which could potentially affect your kiddo's benefits if you are on Medicaid. Every state's different. So that's just something to consider.
Okay, thank you. So now we're going to take a quick little break, and I'm not wearing my glasses, so I can't see what I'm doing. We're just going to have this little poll on the screen. And Romeesa, if you want to.
Thanks, Allicyn, for those great options. And so now if you could take a moment to fill out a poll about like how you heard about Trexo and why you're interested in Trexo, it'll really help us to get to know you better and how we can better deliver like more information and webinars in the future. So you should see a poll pop up right now, and just I'll give you some time to just fill out those questions, and then we'll go back into some frequently asked questions with Allicyn.
Okay, it looks like people are filling it out, so we'll let that go for just another minute. Just to give you a heads up, what Allicyn's going to talk about next is also another topic that's really important to a lot of people. And so that is, what is the process for getting insurance approval? So I think it's okay if you want to get started, Allicyn.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, the question everybody asks is, do you take insurance? Will you accept my insurance? And it's not a matter of will we take or will we accept it? It's not necessarily up to us right now because we don't have pre-approvals in place for the Trexo. That is our goal, but because the Trexo is the first device of its kind, we also have to build this insurance space, and that's what we're working towards. We do have several studies underway. One is just wrapped up, but others are still going. And so ideally, when the studies wrap up, we'll take all this data to insurance and fight for pre-approval, right? Because we do want the Trexo to be accessible to all who need it. In the meantime, we do have families trying to apply for insurance, and I encourage everybody to try, because the worst they could say is no. I will tell you, we've had 4 approvals. 3 were private, 1 was state Medicaid. Out of the 3 private, 2 of the families had the Trexo, and I'm not sure the exact timeline, but would say like 6 months of Trexo use. They took all that data and included that in their letter of medical necessity to insurance. The 3rd approval, it was a Blue Cross Blue Shield. It was out of Illinois, and the mom actually got Blue Cross to agree to cover it for a year. So they looked at it from an approach of, instead of purchasing in full like the other 2, they would cover it for a year at a time. So obviously mom will have to go back for a year 2 for that authorization, but that's just another way to look at it, is you can approach them for the full purchase. And if they say no, you can appeal it and ask them to cover it for a year at a time. And we do have template letters of medical necessity and other supporting documentation that I can share. So we know this letter works. That's what the 4 families have used. Really all your therapist has to do is plug in your child's information. If you do have a Trexo, or if you go to a hospital or clinic and try out their device, you can take the data from those sessions and include that in the letter. Just keep in mind that your therapist or your doctor will have to submit to insurance, because we don't have an insurance department, so we can't do that part at this time. The other thing is you could technically as well, you would just have to probably call the back of your insurance card and ask them what the process is for submitting to insurance, and they typically will guide you through it. It's steps, but it can be done. And with regards to private insurance, if you have private insurance, it can go directly through us. If you have state Medicaid, we'll have a couple hurdles to kind of walk through, and I'm happy to help talk you through it. Just know that if it is Medicaid, you will have to work with a DME company. That's your equipment provider, whoever, gives your kid their chair, their bath chair, feeding chair, whatever it is, that's your DME company. You would have to work with one of them to submit to insurance, because we're not contracted with Medicaid. So they will require that provider. Since we're not contracted with any DME companies, that's where we'll have to kind of have that conversation of what makes sense and who's in your area and who to go through. And we can talk offline of what that looks like for you. The last thing I'll mention about insurance, because it kind of falls in this umbrella of funding sources, is your state waiver. I shouldn't say every state, most states have a waiver program. If I'm in Colorado, so I know how to navigate ours. Tiffany's in Minnesota, she knows how to navigate hers. So it's every state is really different of how they roll out their waivers. So that would be a source of funding for you to potentially look at as well. It's hard for me to kind of navigate your state. I can navigate Colorado for you, but other states, just know you can look at them as well and see if they might cover, if they won't cover all of it, maybe even just a portion.
Okay, great. So we actually moved through those topics quicker than I thought. So we're going to spend a little bit of time. I've just got some other questions here that I'll run by you, Allicyn. So first, I think what people want to know is what is the process in terms of one-on-one figuring out if their child is a fit, and how do you walk them through, the whole process from your first conversation to them making a decision that they want the Trexo?
Yeah, I mean, it's typically we just jump on a call and talk through it. The more I know about your child, the better I can kind of assess if I think it would be a good fit. The great thing about the Trexo is there's not a ton of, there's things that would disqualify your child, but it's not like standard equipment where, if your child can't do this list of things like hold their head up or initiate steps, they can't use this equipment. The Trexo is very unique in that sense. So I wouldn't want you to just automatically assume your child can't use it, because that's how it is with every other piece of equipment. But we jump on a call, I'll learn about your kiddo, we can talk through it. and I'll just give you feedback. But once you feel comfortable and determined that, yes, I want to move forward, you place your reservation, and then we start our internal assessment. So just know we do a very thorough internal assessment where you fill out the online form with background history, videos, measurements, things like that with your child. We review it internally. We want to make sure one is safe and appropriate, but also that it would benefit them. We don't want to sell the Trexo just to sell it. We actually want to make sure that they can benefit from it and use it. And if we feel that it's not a good fit, then we would at that point refund the deposit back to you.
Okay, great. And can you talk about some of the benefits, either that Kauai specifically has experienced, and also just some of the feedback we're hearing from parents?
Yeah, I mean, from personal experience, my son's been using the Trexo about 2.5 years now. And I mean, really, I have a different kid, and I know I can attribute most of this to the Trexo because a lot of it started during the pandemic when we stopped all therapies. He wasn't going anywhere. We weren't doing anything. And I was playing home therapist, which I'm not qualified to do. So I know it wasn't me. So that's where I can say the Trexo has benefited him in so many ways that I never thought possible. So for him, he stopped initiating steps when he was very little. I'd say maybe 6 months old. Like he kind of had that reciprocal pattern, but he just stopped. His diagnosis is HIE, CP, quad spastic, epilepsy, and other subdiagnoses. So when he started the Trexo use, within a couple of months, he started that carryover again. I took him out of the Trexo, put him on the ground, and he started doing that reciprocal pattern. Over time, he's gotten so much better with it that he actually qualified for a gait trainer, which he wasn't a candidate for before because he wasn't initiating steps. So that was one benefit. His head control has improved. His trunk control has improved. His swallowing improved because he's strengthening his core. His sleep, his bowel movements, because he's moving. And one thing that really surprised me was his vision. He does have CVI. So kiddos with CVI track better when they're moving. And I didn't think anything of it, but he didn't qualify for a communication device before the Trexo. And then after about 6 months of Trexo use, he had another eval for a device, and they're like, I don't know what you guys did, but at this point, yeah, he can actually use a communication device. So I noticed him picking up things in his environment, tracking better. So just some of the benefits that I've seen for my son.
Great, thanks for sharing that. And are there any other questions that you get frequently as you're having conversations with people that we haven't covered?
There's a couple. I mean, I think one of the things people will ask about, hip, my child has hip dysplasia or scoliosis or contractures. Can they still use the Trexo? And these are things that technically, yes, they can, but we're going to assess it and make sure that it's still within that safe range. If we need doctor's approval, we'll ask for it. But contractures, like the Trexo can accommodate for contractures within certain degrees. So, and we've seen kiddos actually gain range of motion, pretty regularly with their Trexo use. And the idea is we're meeting the children where they're at with their range of motion. We're not trying to force them outside of their comfort zone. So we set it with what they're comfortable with. And then over time, you can slowly increase those gait angles. And Mark, who's our customer success manager, fully supports you throughout that process. So they know what they're doing. And the other thing I will actually mention is the Riften, because I do get asked a lot about the Riften. That green frame that you guys do see in the videos and the pictures, that's a Riften dynamic pacer. That is separate from the Trexo. You can get it from us. We do get a discount from Riften as a partner, and we pass that partner pricing on to you. Obviously, you can also go through insurance. So the thing that I like to just kind of share with families around the Riften is think about it. If you've never gotten a gait trainer for your child and you think that they will need another one in the future, it will be cheaper for you to purchase the Riften Dynamic from us and get the other gait trainer like the Crocodile or the Grillo or the Kid Walk through insurance, because we have a discount. And if you go somewhere else and try to get that Kid Walk, like at rehabmart.com, you're going to pay way more. So those are things to think about. But yes, you can get it from insurance. A lot of parents are proactive, which is amazing, and want to get the Riften set up ahead of time. Don't do that, please. Don't get your Riften until you do the assessment with us, because we measure differently for that Riften than your DME company will. And oftentimes they size smaller than we need, and you end up with a smaller Riften and you actually need a bigger one. But we'll tell you exactly what to order once you go through the assessment process.
Great. So can you also talk a little bit about, it's kind of a two-part question, how the Trexo can grow with children? And then part two is give some examples of features and things that we're adding and new announcements.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so there's 4 sizes of Trexo. You have small, medium, large, and extra large. It is very much dependent on the leg length of the child. So while I'll give you an age range, just know it's really not an age thing. 0 to 3 is small, 3 to 6 is typically a medium, 7 on up is a large. That max size of the large is about 5 feet, 5'1". Again, it's dependent on leg length, and then the max size of the extra large goes up to about 5'9". So large and extra large weight as well as 150 pounds, small and medium is 75 pounds. But there is growth within each device. So it is adjustable at the thigh length, shin length, seat height, and frame height. So your kiddo has a lot of room to grow within each device, but once they officially outgrow that size, you do have the option to upgrade to the next size. So instead of purchasing a whole new device for $40,000, say you start with the medium, there's an upgrade fee to go to the next size leg. So small to medium is $2,500, medium to large is $7,500, large to extra large is $2,500. And so the reason for that bigger fee from that medium to large is because your child at that point is also upgrading to extra large motors. They're stronger and they need the more powerful motors at that part. So that's why that is a bigger fee. But when you look at the cost of all of that of an upgrade, roughly an additional 13,000, call it, on top of $34,000 over the life of your child, assuming they're going to be not taller than 5'9". That's kind of how I looked at it. It's a great investment. It's actually the price. It helped me with the price when you look at it from the life of your child, because equipment is expensive. Second answer to your two-part question around the new features. So I think some of the newer features I'll talk about is around our gait patterns. So with the Trexo, initially we started out with just one standard gait cycle, which it does the kind of the pattern that you set for your child. We technically call that endurance mode. Now we have what we call strength mode, which it actually has a little bit of variability in there, like with the degree of angle set for your child. So it is sensing what your child's doing, where they're initiating, and allowing for some degree of variability when you're in strength mode. Mark, our customer success manager, he'll typically start everybody in endurance mode. And then once your child reaches a certain initiation percentage, because you can see on the tablet of the Trexo how much your child's initiating. So once you see maybe like 30%, don't hold me to that, but I think that's what it is. He might typically look at that point to transition to strength mode. So with those two modes, you also have high tone gait pattern, which we are releasing here very soon. It's actually in testing with several people. That's going to be for the children who have high extensor tone. So if your child does have a tendency to throw themselves backwards, especially like when they're walking, the idea here is that the child's knee will bend a little bit earlier in the gait cycle, thus preventing them from going backwards. And the other one that I'm really excited about is backwards walking, where your child will literally be able to walk backwards in the Trexo. So, I mean, as a parent, I think that's going to open up a whole bunch of doors for my son, at least, just with around motor planning and neuroplasticity, and no concept of backwards walking for him. So it's really exciting to kind of see what that can do for kiddos.
That's great. Thank you. Okay, so now I want to introduce you again to Tiffany. So just a little bit of information. Tiffany's son, Karter, uses the Trexo. She'll tell you a little bit more about Karter and the foundation that they started. Thank you, Tiffany, for coming on today and sharing some info with us.
Of course, I'm excited to be here.
So you can just go ahead and tell your story.
Can you see me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I can't see myself, so that's fine. I don't need to see myself. Thank you, Allicyn, for sharing all that. Actually, so Karter's been a Trexo user for 2.5 years also. Very similar, it sounds like, to your son. He has spastic quad CP from an HIE injury at birth, very severely affected, CVI, seizures, feeding tube, all the things. And I learned some things from that. So that was really interesting. Before I talk about Karter and our foundation and kind of what we're doing, I just wanted to kind of reiterate some of the things that Allicyn had said, just because a light bulb went off for me when she was talking, because my son uses an eye gaze communication device, and he started doing that when he was 3 years old, which is pretty early. I had to do a lot of advocacy around that. But Karter also started using the Trexo around 2.5, 3 years old. And so I did not put together that connection between CVI and vision and the movement piece, because he does really well with his eye gaze device, considering how much brain damage he has, and people are blown away by his skills. And so I didn't put that together. I have no idea if that's true for Karter, but I can't imagine that hasn't benefited him. So thank you for sharing that, because I'm going to add that to my list of things.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, the other thing I wanted to say too, I think, cognitive development happens when your body is moving in space. And one thing that, I just kept thinking when you were talking, Allicyn, was like, bodies are meant to move. They're not meant to be stationary. And so our philosophy of care truly is around that. We're therapy driven. And that is so beneficial for so many systems: neuromuscular health, GI health, respiratory health. So I think, when you're talking about insurance appeals and, applying to your waivers and those types of things, really emphasize the health benefits, because yes, it's walking and it's mobility and it's amazing to see your child walking, but there's so many health benefits because your bodies are meant to move. So I'll get off my soapbox, but my mind was kind of just like blown while you were talking. So, okay, back to Karter and our foundation. So yes, Karter will be 6 here and the end of June, which is crazy. He just finished kindergarten. And our story is pretty extreme because Karter had such a significant injury at birth. The team of NICU doctors, when he was born, took one look at his MRI and 5 days later said that he would have no quality of life, that he would not understand, his world visually. He wouldn't hear, suck, swallow, eat, roll over. And I remember my husband and I having this conversation with our team and said, well, will he understand joy? That was really, for us, that was like quality of life. Will he enjoy his life? Will he know who his family is? And 100% certainty, the doctor said, no way. And we were devastated. And I had never had a child with any kind of medical complexities. I was too grief stricken and shocked. And I trusted them blindly, honestly. And so we held him in our arms and we removed life support 5 days later, and we braced ourselves, to say goodbye to him and feel his body stop. And I can't even believe I said that out loud. It's so crazy. And then he, was sent home in hospice because he remained stable. And we finally got a better care team that really kind of helped us navigate how to do this. And our palliative doctor that we found, who I absolutely love, told us that he thinks we can make a 5-year plan. Okay. When Karter will be 6, guys, and he's not going anywhere. Not that I can help anyway. So it's just been an extremely difficult journey, trying to figure out how to do this life. And if you're a family that has a child like our kids, like we're like, you become in this club that you never wanted to be a part of, but you're so thankful to have the connection and the support from other moms. And so I finally pulled myself out of my grief fog a little bit. I had 2 children after Karter, which pregnancy after HIE is a thing that's really hard to do. Plus logistics of having 4 children is really tricky. And then you add a pandemic in the mix and it got to be really crazy. And so for me, just personally, the grief and just navigating all this stuff has really been a roller coaster. And so I finally decided to pull myself out of my grief fog and start sharing more on social media. And the Trexo has been a big part of our world. Like I said, since Karter was 3, we've been using it. And so every time I posted a picture or a video, I got the questions, how did you get it? How much does it cost? Did insurance cover it? How did you afford it? How did you fundraise? And it just made me mad. It just made me mad. And it's really frustrating that, I'm listening to Allicyn, give you so many ideas about how to get this. And it shouldn't be this hard. families have so much on their plate, and walking should be something that all children get to experience if that's what their parents want them to be able to experience. Like, this is a medically necessary technology. That's my opinion. And so because I kept getting all these inquiries, we started a nonprofit foundation in 2020, truly just inspired by the parenting journey that we had with Karter. I have a special education background, I should say that. So I have 3 postgraduate degrees in special education, ironically. Karter is the one disability area that I really didn't know much about. Mobility challenges, feeding tubes, eye gaze, AAC. I was familiar with Proloquo and some of those more touch apps, but he was completely out of my league. And it's just so different when you're a parent, you guys, like, you know this, but it was very humbling to be all of a sudden this disability parent. But, you know, I have a lot of background in this area. And so we just decided, you know, I have all of this random knowledge. And I, like Allicyn said, I really figured out our waiver system in Minnesota. So I kind of just found myself on the side, just helping moms, you know, helping other families figure stuff out. And I said, let's do this. So we created a nonprofit organization in 2020 to really just help families like ours. It's really, we aim to be a support, a place of connection, encouragement for families, and really just to help them figure it out. So one of the mission projects that we're taking on, as you may have seen, is this Trexo sponsorship, because like I said, everyone was reaching out and saying, you know, asking me all these questions about how we afforded it. And it just made me angry that, you know, other families have to struggle with it. So we are taking this on. Our goal is to raise some money for robot legs and hopefully sponsor one or maybe more families to have their own device, because fundraising, as I am learning firsthand, is really hard. It's really time consuming. And honestly, I don't know how families do this if you have to fundraise for all of your equipment. We are so lucky because we have a really good medical assistance waiver program, as well as insurance. So most of the equipment that we have is funded that way. So I haven't really had to do this. So our goal right now is to hopefully sponsor a family or more to have their very own Trexo. I want to take that burden off of people and hopefully raise some funds to do that. So we have a big event coming up in September. It's called Race for Robot Legs. We live in Minnesota, and so we have a race route that will be in St. Paul. But the great thing is that anyone can participate because there'll be a virtual component as well. So it doesn't matter where you live, what time zone, if you're local and you can't make it, there's definitely still a way for you to participate and help. And we are seeking sponsorships for the event. We're going to have a silent auction component. So I'm hoping to raise some serious money for some robot legs, because, and this was all my idea too. I actually, because, you know, we meet with Mark all the time to troubleshoot, and Karter actually is just in the process of going from the medium to the large. So we've been having to see Mark probably more than he wants. But I went to him and I just said, hey, Mark, I have this crazy idea. You know, what do you know, what if I raise some money for robot legs? What do you think? And so he pitched it to the team. So this, I want to be really clear. This is not, you know, Trexo coming to me. This is 100% me as a mom, just trying to roll my sleeves up and help some other families, because we were lucky. We didn't have to do all that. So yeah, so you can check out our website too, because obviously our mission project right now is this, but there's other ways besides the race that you can support. Of course, there's a way to directly donate on our website. But I also had a really cool opportunity to speak with Billy Price. He is the founder of Billy Footwear. And my guess is if you're a Trexo user, you probably have heard of this brand of shoe, but if not, you know, it really came out of Billy's own story too. When he was 19, he fell 3 stories and it left him paralyzed. And as he was trying to rehab and, you know, figure out how to do his life in a wheelchair, the one thing he couldn't do was get his own shoes on. And so he developed this shoe, Billy Footwear, and it's, you know, supposed to be an inclusive brand. Like, yes, obviously kids who have mobility challenges can use this, but they're just cool and they're really functional. So really anybody can wear them. And like I mentioned, I have 4 kids, and honestly, my 4-year-old she doesn't have the attention. We'll see if she learns how to tie shoes, but the girl does not have an attention span. So I like them for her, honestly, because she can just zip them up and go. So we have a partnership with them. So anytime you purchase through our website, you have to go through our site to get the discount, but it's 10% off. And then we get, I think, 5% of that just towards our foundation. So that's just another easy way. If you're a Billy footwear user, if you just buy through our site, then you know, that helps support this Trexo mission project, because right now that is our sole focus. Our mission project right now really is raising money for Trexo. So that is kind of what we're up to. The other thing I wanted to point out on our website, there's a lot of resources. I have 4 children, like I mentioned, and so I think it's really important to see kids represented, like their brother, you know, as they get older and have more questions. And so I listed a bunch of inclusive children's books that that we really have found helpful. There's other, you know, resources on there, inclusive companies. I don't know if you can see my shirt, but I'm all about just supporting, you know, any company or, you know, anything that really has an inclusive message behind it. So there's just a ton of resources on our website too, that if you don't want to raise money for robot legs, that's okay. But we have other resources that you might find helpful. There's also a podcast called the Rare Life Podcast, and that's for medically complex families. And that's just, I don't know, it's been encouraging to me. So really the overall idea of what we're trying to do is just be a resource, be another platform to help families, you know, figure out how to do this life, and hopefully buy some Trexos while we're at it. So yeah, Jen, that's Kourageous Karter Foundation in a nutshell.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So just a little bit of housekeeping that I should have taken care of at the beginning. We'll be sending you a replay of the webinar. So if there's any information that you didn't catch, by tomorrow morning, you'll have the replay to watch. And we're also going to include a resource sheet. So any of the resources that Allicyn's compiled, Tiffany's website, everything will all be put together on one sheet so that you can access everything that you need to. All right. Oops. There. Guys, what am I doing? Oh, there we go. Romeesa, did you want to?
Yes. So thank you, Tiffany, for sharing the story. It's always really impactful listening about, you know, your whole journey and the processes of like you going out there and helping other families now. So yeah, now that we have heard more about Trexo and also about how Tiffany can to use the Trexo for Karter. Here are some experiences that other families have mentioned about using the Trexo for their child. Oftentimes we find that hearing about the Trexo experience from another family can help understand how it can fit into your family and for your child. So these are some experiences that parents have shared with us about their child's use. So I'll let you take a minute to just read through them as well. And we know that every child is different, and these experiences will vary across children and their use of the Trexo. So it's always good to hear about different children with different diagnoses and also different lifestyles. So you can hear and read more about the kids' stories on our website, and we'll include that in our resource sheet that we'll send out tomorrow as well.
Okay, and so again, if you didn't catch those, these are all on the website, and you will get the replay, and I'll include them on the resource sheet as well. Whoops. There we go.
Yeah, so now I'll just share the process of how you can reserve for the Trexo. If you feel like you've got your questions answered and if you're interested at the moment. So we are currently reserving for January of 2023. Although we can accommodate for special circumstances such as international timelines and so forth. So feel free to contact us. And if you are interested, you can reserve online by going to our website and clicking on the Reserve Now button. So you can place your reservation fee of $1,000, and this is a refundable fee. So if for some reason you change your mind and if the Trexo is not a good fit for your child, you will get a refund of the $1,000 reservation fee. And then Allicyn will connect with you, and here you get to know a bit more about what you can expect, the timeline, and if you have any questions, you can also get them answered. And you'll also receive an email with an assessment form. And this is where we get to know more about your child and make sure that the Trexo is safe and is a good fit for your child, because we want to make sure it's beneficial and actually will help in your child's development. So yeah, at this point, if you have any specific questions about your child's fit and anything else, you can contact us through our email or call us, and you'll hear back from Allicyn. I know someone was asking about our contact information, so here's our contact information, and you'll also receive it tomorrow along with the resource sheet.
And I think we made it clear a couple times, but just to reiterate, Allicyn, she handles sales, but she's really a resource for you guys to help you figure out what makes sense, what will benefit your child, and kind of walk you through the process. So definitely, if you still have questions, if there's things that you want to understand more in depth, connect with Allicyn, and I think you're going to find that really beneficial. So right now, what we're going to do is we're going to open it up for questions. I just want to say we really appreciate you guys coming and spending your time here, and hopefully we've answered a lot of your questions. As we open it up, we ask that you not get into personal information, not get into the details of your child's medical background or anything like that, just out of respect for everybody's time here. So if we can try to answer questions that are a little more broad or general, like I said, you can connect with Allicyn if you need some personal attention. I am just going to see what we have in the chat. Okay, so one of the questions, Allicyn, if you want to talk about this, what kind of research studies have been done with the Trexo?
Yeah, I mean, so I think Romeesa might be able to kind of post a link to our website just with regards to research studies. I can't speak to specific details around it because there's several underway and they're very detailed, but I can tell you, like University of Calgary, UCSF, St. Mary's Children's Hospital, several others, Cincinnati Children's, that even like the University of Calgary is a home study. So there's several that are underway. So I can't really kind of share like details of that because there's nothing wrapped up fully for me to share yet, but internal case studies with users, like we have those things that we can share. The one thing I can say is that robotic gait training is nothing new. There's robotic gait training has been going on forever. It's just the fact there's a pediatric device that walks around not on a treadmill is new. So if you look at things like, for example, the Locomat, that's a hospital device. It's not all over it's not in every state, but some states do have it. But there's plenty of studies around robotic gait training that you can look into. And we do reference those with regards to insurance and in submitting that.
Okay. And then the next question is, so we get our child approved to use the Trexo first before submitting to insurance?
That's a good question. And honestly, I think it's your personal preference. It's really, I mean, I think there's several variables there, right? It's like, can you afford to place the deposit and go through the assessment? I mean, if you're concerned around, will my child actually qualify, and you have the money to do the deposit, I always recommend do the deposit, because if we decide it's not a good fit, or even if you change your mind while you're on the wait list, we'll refund that deposit back to you. But at least you know exactly, yes, your child will qualify, what size Trexo that they will need, and what Riften components and accessories you will need. So that's helpful. But if you don't have the funding, then you can still try. It's just, I don't think there's really I don't have a black and white answer to say, yes, this way works, this way doesn't, because there's so many variables right now of ways that people have approached insurance, and it's still very new that several things are working. So happy to talk kind of further and guide if it helps, but I think really it's whatever fits best for you.
Okay, great. Next question is, how much time does the child spend in the Trexo per day?
That's a good question. It's dependent on the child. To be honest with you, when my son started, I'll be honest, he was not a fan. He hated it. But my son was also the kid who hates the stander. He hates AFOs. You try to restrict him, he's not doing it. So I knew it would be a challenge, but I knew he wanted to move. So when he started 5 minutes, maybe 3 times a week, that's what he was doing. And then we worked up over time slowly. Like we actually just walked in the air. He wasn't even doing weight bearing for a long time. It's air walking for about the first 3 months. And then we slowly lowered him over ground. It's what he could tolerate. He built it up to where fast forward 2.5 years later, he's in it for almost an hour a session. And he does upwards of 1,500 to 2,000 steps a session. It just depends what speed he's walking and on the time of day and his demeanor. It's like, does he want to do it? Then he will. Otherwise he's over it and we're done. So our goal is definitely daily. And you guys know how it is with time being a parent. My goal is to get him in it twice a day. So that's ideal. And I know parents that were in it 3 times a week. We have some parents that are in it. I think we have one parent that actually uses it like 4 or 5 times a day for her child. And he does like 10,000 steps a day.
That's great. So I just want to say that we had a really big moment not very long ago. So all of the kids together in our Trexo community walked 20 million steps, which is actually the equivalent of a walk around the world. So it's pretty huge and something that we're really proud of. Tiff,
actually, and on that note, can I just ask, because I know Tiffany, you guys use the treadmill a lot. What did it look like when you guys started using it, like from just a time perspective?
Yeah, I was going to chime in too, because I was laughing because like, at first it was tricky. It was really tricky. And then we actually had our hip surgery, which was terrible. And so we had to kind of start over once his hips were in a better spot. And so Karter, he didn't actually do the air walking. He did it right away, but we started off more slow. And it was maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And now he is up to, I would say, on a good day, we use it for sure once a day, sometimes twice, 20 to 30 minutes, mostly due to just time constraints, because we have other things we got to get to. But we have a treadmill. So we just did a big home modification project in our house. I hate it, but we don't have an elevator. And so it was really tricky to figure out how to get the like we have to decide where we're going to put this Trexo. We didn't have room in our basement for him to really walk anywhere. And so we actually got the treadmill, and you could tell it took some time for him to adjust because he's a kid. He likes to move in space. So at first I don't think he liked it, but I don't like treadmills either. And so I gave him his iPad. There's this one show that he likes, and it's so annoying, but it was like, okay, fine. You can have your show during your Trexo, and it was like, I put the goose mount in front of the treadmill, and I will say it was amazing. I think now he almost does better on the treadmill because now that it's nice out, we live in Minnesota. And so now that, the long winter is over, we've actually, and he just does moving sizes, we moved the treadmill, and then, so we're going to dock it in our garage. And so we can actually take him for walks when it's nice out outside. And we did that when, before we did this big transition, and you could tell going from the treadmill to moving in space was an adjustment for him. Like, I don't feel like his initiation was quite as good because he's like, wait a minute, what's going on? So, and I will say Karter, on a good day, he'll initiate 20 to 30%. But I will say he's probably more in like the 15 to 25% initiation range. And that's okay. And he may never, maybe he will, maybe he won't, but either way, I love that he's getting those steps. And just like anything, he builds a tolerance. And once he tolerates it, then he actually likes it. I can tell once he's used to being in it, he enjoys it. And he'll go on his talker, as we call it, robot legs, obviously. And so he has robot legs on his device, and he'll ask for it. It's crazy. So, I think having that treadmill is a really good option for families to either live in the tundra like we do, and you can't go outside the majority of the year, or if you have a small space, and you can't really move around a lot, it's a really, really great option. And sometimes he would work out and then I would work out, and I didn't want to work out, but I had to because Karter was working out, and we would do it together, and so it kind of is nice because then your child's like safe and docked and you're right there, and and he's getting the steps in. So that's just something to think about too, is that treadmill piece if you're worried about how would that look in my house.
Okay, great. So Tiff, the next question is actually for you as well, from Lori. Does your organization only raise funds for kiddos residing in Minnesota?
Oh, thank you for asking that question. Absolutely not. Nope. Right now, I don't want to exclude everybody. And I I have a dream. I'm like, I want to buy one for anybody who wants one. It's not possible right now. But no, we are opening it up to anybody. So right now on our website, if you go to our mission projects tab, there's a general nomination form. And I do get questions a lot about like, how do you decide? We're working with Trexo on very objective selection criteria, because obviously you have to be an eligible candidate. So we are taking nominations from all over right now. And I'm making a list of all of the people who are nominated. And then once we get closer to our fundraising goal, we'll be in contact and communication about the selection process for that. So no, thank you for asking. Anybody can be nominated, no matter where you are.
Great. I also want to just mention that there's some praise for Billy footwear here. Everybody loves Billy shoes, so that's awesome. So Geneva shared that she wished she had known about this when her children were younger. They're 12 and 16 now, and she hopes it's not too late. So what I would suggest, Geneva, is definitely connect with Allicyn. As she said, there's different things. A lot of it has to do with leg length and weight and different things. So connect with her, and she'll be able to help you figure it out.
Yeah, and I'll also mention on that note, we have people who are in their 20s using the Trexo. It's all dependent on the height. And also, just to alleviate some of your mom guilt, just know that the Trexo is new. It officially released for home use in 2019. So you're really not too far off. So you're okay.
Thank you for saying that. That's important. So we have about 9 minutes left. We're going to keep burning through as much as we can. I'm going to make sure that I capture all of your questions. And so if we don't get them answered, we can maybe get them done in the next session or on a blog post. We are going to make this a series, and we're going to cover different parts of the process, what it's like once you've made a reservation, understanding what training and support is like. So we'll be able to answer questions going forward. Allicyn, this question I think will be good for you. Can you explain how it works for international persons to purchase a Trexo? Oh, on lease. Sorry, it's saying on lease.
Yeah, unfortunately, if you are outside of the US or Canada, you do have to purchase it in full. The lease option is not an option if it's going out of these two countries. Our goal is to kind of just be like the, for lack of a better term, exoskeleton company of the world. And I mean, I really think we'll get there. We're just not there right now. We're in the US and Canada. Even though you're in another country, you can still get the Trexo. You just have to purchase it in full. Depending which country you're in, there's only a handful we can actually even ship directly to. So feel free to email me. We can set up a Zoom call. I'm happy to chat. That's typically what I do with international families is we'll chat. I'll answer your questions. But you would have to have somebody, if I can't ship it to you direct, you have to have somebody ship it to you, or you have to come here and get it and bring it back with you. So those are the options, and I'm happy to talk further offline.
Great, thanks. And I see a question here about the Riften and the Trexo robotic legs. And I'm not sure based on the timing if this was before we covered it, but just to sort of recap, Allicyn, do you want to talk about how they're both needed?
Yeah. So, I mean, technically the Trexo itself we build the robotic legs. Our components are also the battery box, and then the cables that attach the legs to the battery. And then there's a tablet that comes with it. There's an app on the tablet that acts as a remote control for everything that goes on with the robotic legs. The green frame, that Riften dynamic pacer, has to be the dynamic, is separate. It is not included with the Trexo. But we basically attach our robotic legs to the top frame. It slides right on. It's very easy to put together.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. I'm just scrolling through. Can you explain air walking?
Yeah. So basically, you raise the frame of that Riften to max height, and assuming your child has room there, their feet aren't touching the ground. And so as soon as you hit start on the app, your child is walking in the air. So they're not weight bearing at all. Oftentimes, a lot of kiddos will start out in air walking just to get them comfortable because it's something new and it might be scary, or maybe they haven't done any weight bearing. So just get them used to that range of motion, raise it to max height, and they don't touch the ground.
Great, thank you. And can you use the treadmill base with the Trexo?
So you can use our treadmill with the Trexo. It has to, unfortunately, it has to be the Trexo treadmill. We tried to find a commercial treadmill early on, and unfortunately it didn't work. We tried several because we have to be able to accommodate for the robotic legs and the battery box. So Our treadmill we built, and you basically are rolling the Trexo on top of the treadmill and locking the wheels. And just cost of the treadmill, it's $1,000 one-time fee, and then any shipping, and then if your state charges tax, the tax would be applied to it. Oh, and it's a manual belt. Sorry, I should mention that. A lot of people just, you're thinking treadmill component. Yeah, there is no electrical component to it. It's a manual belt, so all the electrical parts is the Trexo.
Okay, great. And then how long does it take initially and then ongoing to get the child into the Trexo ready to use it?
I mean, that's a good question. I might be off with it, so I apologize in advance if it takes longer, but I would guess maybe 20 to 30 minutes initially to get your child in the Trexo. Mark is helping you throughout that process, right? So he's helping you adjust the leg length to your child specifically. And then he's working with the tablet, the software, to set the child's gait pattern. So that's what's going to take the longest, is making sure all the supports, chest prompt, if your child has an external head support as well, all of these things are adjusted, but it's the software. So he's taking you through to make sure it's set properly, and then taking you through practice sessions. But once you're beyond that, I think my son, I get him in, because he's the only one using it. So it takes 30 seconds to get him in, and then 10 seconds to get him out. Pretty quick.
Okay, great. So this is an interesting question. Who are the cases that would mostly benefit from Trexo? So like a sort of an ideal persona type of thing.
Yeah, I don't, I think it's too hard to say. I don't think there's really ideal cases, because I think many cases can benefit. And oftentimes what happens is, because the Trexo is such a new technology, is if you're going to your therapist, they don't know about the Trexo. And so they're just assuming your child can't use it because they can't hold up their head, or because they use a gait trainer, they're not going to benefit from it. Both sides would benefit immensely from the Trexo. Like I said, my son doesn't roll, sit, stand, walk any of that on his own yet, but he benefits so much from the Trexo. And then I have friends whose kids use the walker regularly, and they benefit from the Trexo because they're building that proper gait pattern. It's like over time, your child's not going to be able to consistently walk and walk far if they have an irregular gait pattern. So building that proper patterning and strength and endurance is really important. So I don't think there's a typical case that would be the best fit. There's many.
Okay, and I do see that there's a couple questions along the same lines, like who does the Trexo target and who's the focus? And so I think, Allicyn, really what we're saying is a conversation with you is the best way.
It would be, but if you're looking for a general statement, anybody with a lower body mobility challenge, that's the best broad statement that I could give you. But yeah, absolutely. Call, you can text those numbers that were shared. You can text it. It goes to me. I answer text as well.
Okay, great. Okay, and then is it easy to install and move to different locations?
I mean, install, it takes time, right? Obviously, because you're putting together the Rift, and you'll have the Rift in together ahead of time. There's a PowerPoint that shows you these things, and then you get instructions sent to you on how to attach the robotic legs. I think the thing that takes the most time is probably getting the battery box on the bottom of the frame. And our device was set up, 2.5, 3 years ago. So it's changed, it's progressed. And I know we're constantly working on ways to make it easier and simpler for you. So it could be easier now than it was for us at the time. And then second part was transfer locations. So it's heavy. It depends on your vehicle. So I will tell you, when we got the Trexo, I had a Nissan Rogue. And so I could put my son's Trexo in the back. It was heavy. I'm 5'2", but I did have to take it to a conference once, and that was probably humorous for anybody who saw me do it, but I had to put the Trexo in the back. And the most challenging part was just lifting the battery box, because that's the heaviest part of it, and just the size. So 2 people, really easy. We now have a wheelchair accessible van, so it's super easy. I just take the ramp out and just roll it right in, and off we go. But it doesn't come apart. So it doesn't fold, it doesn't collapse. I mean, I should say it doesn't come apart. It does come apart, but you're going to have to put it back together. It's just not, and you don't want to do that. Tiffany shaking her head. It's just keep it together, and it'll make your life simpler. And I actually travel with my son's Trexo. We're out of state right now. We're in New Jersey for therapy, and his Trexo's sitting right over there with us.
Great. So we have like 1 minute left, but I really want to fit in this last question. So this is from Lori, and it is, can you share some of the accessories the Trexo has?
Accessories would just really be like our Trexo accessories. It's going to be the treadmill, which we talked about, and then you have the external head support, which we recently came out with, I think beginning of this year. And what that is it's an arm that attaches to the upper frame of that Rift and Dynamic Pacer, and then we have a cushion. Right now, we're working on it because it's still new, to where if you have a cushion for your child's wheelchair, you can just take it off and put it onto that head support. But if a child has poor head control, throwing their head back, and you're constantly trying to keep their head forward, that's where that external head support would come in. It's just a retractable arm, opens and closes when you get your child in and out. And I think I don't think there's any other accessories. I mean, of course, we can talk about supports from a therapy perspective, but that's not Trexo based. And I'm happy to talk about those things too, with like AFOs and braces and other things offline.
Okay, great. So I just really want to thank everybody in the chat, all of your comments and questions and stuff. It really made this process nice for us because it gave us questions to answer for you. So we really appreciate your time and your participation. And thank you to you guys, the panelists, for helping do this. Thank you for your patience with the few little technical glitches. This is the first time we've done this, but like I said, we plan to do more sessions. We really want to be open and available to educate and inform you guys as much as we can. So thank you, everyone. We'll get you the resources and the replay tomorrow. Thanks. Getting a lot of thank yous. People really seem to enjoy it. Great. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, you guys. Thanks.